Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Scale with Joy show. So, today I am here with somebody who has been very special to me in the last few months since we've met. It's Jennifer Allwood. And not only is she about to drop some major wisdom on you, she is also a client. And so, we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to work together and what it's like to actually have somebody in your business looking at it from the outside, but giving you a sense of what might be able to be improved upon and having that strategic advisor just in your pocket at any time. So thanks for joining me, Jennifer. It's great to have you here.
Laura, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we met last November
Mm-hmm.
at the
Yeah.
Iconic conference. And I remember we first met. I had been talking to a bunch of your friends and talking about business. And then you turned to me and you were like, what do you do again?
Yeah. Tell me all the things that you do.
Tell me all the things. Yeah, tell me about like what you help with and how you help. And we ended up having coffee and just a really
Mhm.
nice connection. And you were at a
Yeah.
place in your business where you were really looking to figure out what was next in
Mhm.
terms of growth, but also for you personally too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting. We have a mutual friend. And so that helped. It felt like you were a real safe place,
Mhm.
because the thing about kind of where I'm at in business is you don't often meet people you feel like you can kind of let down all of the walls and be really authentic about what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on
Yes.
actually with the numbers, what aren't just vanity matrices that, sound really good, but they're more, just ego. And so, yeah, for some reason, I felt like you were a really safe place for me to really kind of start talking about some business stuff. It was really fun. I remember later you said it's kind of like I dumped out my business purse on the table. And then we got to have conversations about how to put it all back in.
Yeah, take out all the wrappers, throw
Yeah.
out the things that maybe aren't working anymore and
Chewed
put it
up
back
half piece
in.
of gum. Yeah. Hair ties, dog biscuits. Yeah, all the things.
All of those things in the business where you're like, why am I doing this again? I mean,
Yeah.
it made sense maybe a year or two ago, but it really
Yeah.
doesn't now.
Well, the conversation I think was really valuable and cool for me because you asked me questions, Laura, that nobody's really asked.
Hmm.
And because we started out the conversation with me probably throwing around numbers more than likely because, I'm numbers driven and goal driven. And I knew that
Mhm.
I wanted to double where we're at financially. And you were just really calm, cool, and collected. I'm like, so what's your plan on doing that? And I'm like, well, we're just going to push harder. We're just going to launch a little more. We're just going to make more products. Like, it's interesting. And because in my head, I hadn't really drilled way down. I knew that every year I'd really like to, double where we're at income wise. And so I had, the big number in mind, but in terms of like, how are we going to get there? I didn't actually know the answer to that.
Yeah, and I think at many times when you get to that seven-figure or multiple seven-figure stage, you really start outgrowing a lot of the formulas. And it's really a matter of creating a strategy around the life that you want most.
Yeah.
And you really, at the time, had a lot going on,
Mhm.
both personally, you had taken in your daughter fairly unexpectedly, I think. This was before we met,
Oh yeah,
right?
girl. She was going to spend the night one time and then she now lived with us for 20 months on top of, three biological children. So yeah, so home is kind of
Mhm.
chaotic. Mhm.
Yep, absolutely. And then also you were on this go, go, go. You had published your first book. It was in the process of being edited and
Mhm.
distributed.
Yes.
That took a ton of time and effort, which is an amazing book.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to make sure that we talk about it. And at the same time, it felt like you were done with all the yeses. You were like, I say yes to everything, right? You were kind of at
Yeah.
that place.
Well, I think that sometimes we get roped into this idea of I should want to be speaking at people's events. So if they ask, I
Mhm.
should say yes. I should want to host my own live event. I felt like there was a lot of things that I should do, but you and I have also had a lot of conversations around that I often feel like I don't fit into. I kind of straddle two worlds, as you know. One is
Yes.
like, the business people world. I've got a foot in that world, and the other is really more faith-based, and I have kind of a foot in that world. And so sometimes when you don't know where you belong, almost you feel like, well, let me try some things over here with these people and see if that fits. And let me try over here with these people and see what that fits. And both people in both places, they're doing, X, Y, and Z. And so I probably better do X, Y, and Z. But I was having a lot of internal turmoil about that, as you know, because I feel like some of the joy had kind of been stripped out of where my business had grown to. Like financially, we're kicking butt. I mean,
Right.
I would have never dreamed we'd be at the multi-millions that we're doing per year. But a lot of the things that I was saying yes to really, they weren't exciting me, and they were giving me a lot of anxiety, and they feel pressure. And
Yes.
at 48, with a kiddo graduating high school, two more teenagers, and then now a kindergartner that we're trying to adopt, and a book being launched out into the world, like I felt like I was making decisions, like, because I kept saying to you, I really want a business with low stress, and I don't want a lot of
Yes.
pressure, and I want it to be fun like it used to be. And yet I keep making decisions that are putting me down this path of more pressure, more stress, more performance. And so you and I had to really do some nice deep digging on why I keep doing that, and how to put some things in place in my business that would allow me to kind of back the bus up and rethink some of the things I was doing.
I think one of the most valuable things that you could share is to other people who are feeling that same way, maybe some of the things that you've learned from us working together, some of those takeaways, because you're not the only person who has felt that way.
Yeah.
If anybody has listened to prior episodes of the Scale with Joy show, you know that once you get to this certain level in your business, what got you here isn't going to get you there.
Right.
And it's really important to reevaluate. And so if you wouldn't mind just maybe sharing a couple of those takeaways.
Yeah. So, are you wanting me to talk about like, I'm like, oh, she knows so much. She knows so many of the details.
Sometimes our meetings start out with like Jennifer saying, so this really feels vulnerable, or so I'd probably like say this to you, and I think part of it's because I've been there. I'm like, yeah, of course, like totally.
Yeah. Well, you were the first purple person. You were the first person outside of my husband and myself and our accountant who I've let like kind of really look at the books, which felt very vulnerable. It felt like standing in front of you totally naked saying, please say nice things. And so, and you and I had a long conversation about why looking at the numbers, it feels so vulnerable for me. And I think for the longest time, I was like, okay, we've got plenty of money in the bank. Like, we don't need to really look that closely at things. I can kind of buy what I want when I want. And so unless that feels like it's going in the wrong direction, like that, I didn't really want to really start looking deep into the numbers. But I also knew that like last year, we made just a little bit more than we did the year before, but we spent more last year than we did the year before. So you really encouraged me to like really start getting into our numbers, because the truth is we can say, I made 2 million last year or 5 million last year or 10 million last year. But the truth is like, how much are you keeping is one of the most important things. And I knew in my knower that was so important. But in working with you, I'm like, this is so important that we figure out how much are we keeping? Because if you're making 10 million, but only keeping one like that, and so you and I worked on number one. You tried really hard to get me to do the thing that I hadn't been wanting to do, which was really look at the numbers closely. And I remember saying to you, it feels like when you've just been eating mashed potatoes and ice cream for months. And this new thing that I found during quarantine, Laura, if I put M&Ms in warm popcorn and sit down to like Netflix, oh, it's like heaven. It's like heaven in a bag. It's just, I think that's what it's like. Angels are singing everywhere. And so I've been avoiding getting on the scale because I'm like, I know darn good and well what I've done to myself. I know that I've gone completely in the wrong direction. And that's kind of how I was feeling about some of the number things. Just that I didn't want to look at it because I was almost afraid of what it would say. And the good news was the numbers weren't, they were fine. And they were even better than fine. They were really good, but there's some areas that we could have really, used some work on. And so it was really good feeling like I could kind of open up the books to someone and having somebody other than my accountant kind of validate what we're doing. And, it's almost like just getting that little bit of words of affirmation is my love language, by the way. So, when you're working with someone, he says, you're in a good place. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. I really needed to hear that. But it was an eye opener to go through that work. And I would be lying if I didn't say that every month when I still get the financials, I still get this weird thing in the pit of my stomach. Does that ever go away?
It does, because we're starting to create some lead cash flow reports for you. We're starting to create some lead marketing reports. And so I think what you're really saying summarizes the way that so many entrepreneurs feel about their finances, right? It's like, even when you look at it, like they'll be like, oh, I have a bookkeeper, I have a financial
Yes.
advisor or a CFO. It's still
Yep.
not somebody who's looking at it from a strategic standpoint. They're
Right.
looking at it from a number standpoint, like what bucket should this go in? And it kind of almost doesn't matter. Like we had that conversation for a little while, but I'm like, let's not even worry about it. I just want to make sure that you know what to expect from your business.
Yes.
And when you don't know what to expect from your business, when you're constantly in like reactive mode, you have this low level anxiety, like low grade anxiety, because it's just reactionary. It's like, okay, let's hope that this went well every month. When you look it up, you look at it. Yeah. And we're actually starting to put some reports into your business where we can know what we're spending on marketing and know what we're getting for that spend. And as a result, then we can predict out 6-12 months in advance on how we think the business will go. And then we can measure it against. And then it starts getting really fun, right? Because it starts becoming almost like a game where you're like, okay, this is what we said we were going to do. Did we do it? How far off are we? What can we do about how far off we are? And was it above or below? And the thing about a P&L is it's historical, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just telling us what happened in the past. Yeah. It's kind of like eating the M&Ms on the popcorn for a week straight and getting on the scale and being like, oh, let's see how this went.
Now we've got some work to do.
Now we've got some work to do. And I remember saying to you, okay, we're going to hold hands and get on the scale together.
And so that was one really good thing. The other really good thing is you and I had a lot of conversations about slowing down to speed up. Yeah. And because as an Enneagram 3 and, just a person who's really driven in general, I say that I really want this lifestyle where I don't work very much and where I really, want freedom in my time and freedom in my finances, but I keep making decisions that are taking me in completely the opposite direction because, bright, shiny objects, and it could be profitable. And this is what people say I should do. And so I love the whole slow down so that you can speed up that you and I have been going through in the last several months. And thankfully we're in a financial position where we could really do that, where we can, because we're able to really step back and be like, okay, we don't have to launch anything right now. We don't have to launch anything for this year if we don't want to. Nope. We could just maintain if we want to. And so there's been a lot of really great lessons to come out of that, from that conversation that we had early on about slowing down to speed up. A lot of them are just dialing back into what is it that you actually want? Like, I know what you've said you want, but if you're making decisions that are kind of going counterintuitive to that, do you actually still really want what you want, or have you changed what you want? And then I'm like, gosh, stop it. Like, get out of my Voxer, Laura. Those conversations have been really good. It's almost like business therapy.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
That
doesn't even hurt my feelings because I know you're going to say get out of my Voxer and then Voxer me later.
Get out of my Voxer. But yeah, slowing down to speed up has been really, really good because I think we have this thing in our head thinking, okay, so if I did 2 million last year, I need to do 4 million next year and then 8 million. And we play these games, these numbers in our head. And so unless we had some other strategy other than just push, yes. And that's what we really needed. We really needed to slow down and be like, okay, what strategy is going to get us to where we're wanting to going without more push? Because I'm not into the push. And this after getting to know me, I like having a business. I love to work, number one, but I also love to not work. And I think that's okay and better than okay. And, it's my last few months with my oldest son being at home. And I kind of missed a lot of last summer because I was writing Fear is Not the Boss of You. And I don't want to do that again this summer. And I don't want to say yes to things just because I think that I should. Do they actually really, are they in alignment with where we're trying to go in the company and what we're trying to do in terms of being very methodical and disciplined in what we're saying yes to. And so, yeah, we're getting there. We're going to get there. We're all going to make it.
And we're going to make it without hustling.
Amen.
I know that with the whole hustle word, you and I are really well aligned on this value
Yeah.
system. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're such a good match is because of that value alignment. And
Mhm.
I am like, whenever I hear the word hustle, I just want to be like, you don't have to. You
Don't
can
have
use strategy
to.
instead.
Yeah, you can. And
And
I've said on my own podcast before, Laura, that I think that because I believe in working hard and you believe in working
yeah,
hard. It's biblical, it's just good work ethic, it's all the things.
yep.
But I really think that in America, we have correlated working hard with working long.
Yes.
And people think that if you're working hard, you're working 60 hours a week. Girl, I don't want to put in even 30 hours a week. I mean, when you're pulling all of those hours and something is suffering, whether it's your health, whether it's your
Yes.
family, whether it's your relationships, but you can't continue that push and that hustle for a sustained amount of time. I think you can for short bursts and short seasons when necessary, but you can't do it year in and year out. And and something's going to start breaking. And perhaps this is just me getting ready to turn 49 speaking. I don't know, but I feel like I've got a few years on perhaps some of your listeners. And I wish that I had pushed less for all those years when I was pushing as hard as I did.
And I would encourage anybody who's listening that resonates with this message that you can always switch, but
Mm.
it's a little bit more in your head than anything, right? It's giving yourself permission to make it easy.
Yeah.
Because I know we've created some margin for you. We've created some time freedom. And even in the last few weeks, I've been really encouraging you to take advantage of that time freedom, to
Yes.
relax into it, to rest into it, because we've created some strategies that work in the background of your business that don't require you to go at it with brute force anymore.
Right.
And some of the strategies still need to get tweaked, and some of them are working the way we were
Yeah.
hoping. And we just, tackle each little piece one at a time and create some wins. And I think that's how you create that long game without it being brute force anymore.
Yeah.
And I would really encourage anybody who is feeling close to that state of burnout to really think about, what can I slow down to speed up? And we've talked about burnout, like how hard it is to come back from burnout. And when you're
Yeah.
really far gone, it is it's just more to recover from.
Yeah.
And so I've really encouraged you in that space. And
Yeah. Well,
sometimes it's hard, right?
it is hard. Well, it's hard because the world is weird right now, number one.
Yes.
And, if you're on social media at all, you're seeing what other people in your industry and in your niche are doing. And I know in my lane, there are so many people who are launching right now and they're opening up their memberships right now. And I serve women who are trying to build their social media and use social media to build their business online. So there would be literally probably no better time for us to be launching, opening up my paid
Yes.
group than right now in the middle of a pandemic when everybody's wanting to learn how to make money online, right? But I was telling you yesterday, I absolutely can't. And
Yes.
I did a podcast episode a couple weeks ago about how, I'm a woman of faith. And so I felt like God had given me a word for my listeners that to really know what season you're in. Are you in a season of running or a season of resting? And there are some women right now who are supposed to be running and they're supposed to be launching and they are absolutely like launching things that the world needs. And then there's those of us who are like me right now. And we're just sitting on the back deck with a glass of wine and we're staring at the sunset and just thinking probably should be doing something, but I just don't have it in me. I'm just going to rest. And that's where I'm at. And it feels really good. And the interesting thing is I think it's hard for somebody that does love her business, who is somebody that's very goal driven, who has big goals. I'm Enneagram 3. It's sometimes hard to go, but gosh, I could be adding, another 1,000 people to my paid group right now. And to go, okay, but you know what? I'm just going to not.
Right. Or we can a different way.
Yes.
It just won't be this huge rush.
Exactly.
You won't feel this hurry to get it done within a certain period of time. And I think that's a lot of times when we experience burnout, we're in such a huge rush to get to this place or to get this thing that we don't give ourselves the space and the time to actually make it easy. Because usually over time, the easier, simpler solution tends to appear.
Yeah.
And that tends to happen when we rest into it. I think this is a big switch that many entrepreneurs make, is that they realize at a certain point that they want their next million or
Mhm.
several million to come a little bit easier than the
Yeah.
first few did.
Mhm.
And I would encourage anybody who's listening that that is 100% possible,
Yeah.
and to be open to that possibility, because I think it's really healthy. It's a healthy perspective to have.
Yeah. And it's been a shift for our team because we are used to going into launch mode, about
Yes.
once a quarter with something, pushing hard on something, whether it's Fear's Not the Boss of You being launched, or I have, my paid membership group, or I have a course I do once a year. Like, we're used to launching regularly. So to now go, you know what, we don't actually even have it on the calendar to launch again. And several people on the team are like, wait, what? And I'm like, I know.
They're like, when are we launching again? And I was like,
And, right.
whenever you want, but you don't
Yeah.
have to.
But we don't have to. And so, so it's a whole different way of looking at business when you realize that you've done enough right things that you don't have
Yes.
to. And that feels really good. I'm going to be really honest with you. It feels really good to be in a place where I don't have to. I keep thinking I should, but I don't have to. And isn't it interesting, like at 49, that there's still like this internal turmoil? But and even my book is called Fear is Not the Boss of You. I'm like, launching is not the boss of me either. But you should launch, but I don't want to. But you should launch, but I don't want to. And that is where we're currently at.
And it's so funny because one of your friends contacted me and said, I heard you help Jennifer no longer launch. I'm like, well, not really. It's more what you want. It's more what you want for your life in the place that you're at in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking you, as we were getting into the messaging and some of the marketing strategies that I was helping you with, I remember asking you one day, just having this intuition to really question you on, like, what is it that you want? And it poured out of you, like everything that you wanted and everything you saw for your life.
Yeah.
It just flowed. And I knew that was the Holy Spirit. And I knew
Do
that
you know
was,
that is actually the name of a chapter in my book?
I probably do, because I have your book.
I know. I think, at least let me look at my own book, because it's kind of funny that you forget. You know what? We changed the name of that. So that's why. Okay. Originally there was one chapter called What Is It That You Want? So isn't that funny? Because I had a business coach ask me that probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I started to cry when she asked me, because I didn't really know what I wanted. I just was kind of doing what everybody else, what I saw go before me do, and what I thought was the next logical thing and that I should do. So
yeah. And it changes, right? As your business changes. And as we had that new conversation, it's, again, not about one particular strategy. And I think that's one of the things that makes it hard for me in a lot of ways, because I'll look at other coaches and they're selling their formula and their strategy.
Yeah.
And I know in my heart that for the people I serve, it's more about what's right for them than what's right across the board, and digging into their business and helping them figure out those next steps without actually getting caught up in the shoulds and shouldn'ts, but really looking at what's on your heart and where do you want to grow and how do you want to get there? Because there's a lot of paths to success. And which one do you want to walk down and stay committed to?
And you know that I'm the less push, more free time,
freedom,
more freedom, girl, freedom, because freedom for me, and we talked about this early on, is really freedom in my time and in my finances. So even if I have a full bank account, if I'm doing nothing but sitting at this desk for 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, like, just forget it. Like, here's my purse, because I just can't do that. I need time away from here and out of here. And I remember hearing a business coach once say, no good ideas come from your desk. And that is so true. I cannot stand looking at my calendar. There's been so many months, especially leading up to the launch of the book, where I had, 5 and 6 meetings every day. And there was sometimes, Laura, I'd be like, this is not what I signed up for. I did not become an entrepreneur so that I could have 6 back-to-back meetings where I don't even have time to pee in between. Like, whose life is this? That's not fun. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so now that, like, the calendar is relatively clean, I mean, when I look at June, it's like angels singing. It's like I have a full month with hardly anything on it. And the entrepreneur in me is like, okay, so we need to probably do, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, stop. We don't have to. And what you say, Jen, is that you want more free time. Your entire month of June is pretty much cleared. Are you going to be comfortable in keeping it cleared?
Yes.
It's such a revealing, like, feeling to go through, because sometimes I think I say yes to things just purely for ego. When great people ask me to be on their podcast, or, would I be involved in their summit, or, will I speak here or come on a Facebook Live? And they're all good things, but,
Right.
you know, um,
Is it
giving
your best
myself
yes?
permission to say no is huge.
Yes, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
so I think that was the third thing that we were saying that
Yeah. Permission.
learn from working together is being able, knowing what to say yes and no to,
Yeah.
because you know what you're going for long term.
Mhm.
You know what you're trying to create and how you're going to get there. And once you have that just vision of what you're going to do next, it makes it a lot easier to filter, I think.
Yeah.
And
I haven't even had a chance to tell you yet. I'll Voxer you when we get off
yeah.
this. But yeah, we had somebody reach out to us that wanted me to do a speaking engagement in the fall in a very lovely place on a beach.
Cool.
And we told them no yesterday.
You did.
Yeah, because you want to know why? Because it was in October. And can I tell you why? October is my favorite month of the year. It's the year my husband and I got married.
Mhm.
And the last couple of Octobers, for some reason, Laura, I have filled my Octobers to the brim. And every October, I'm so angry at myself. I miss the whole month. Like, one of my kids' birthdays is in October. Our anniversary is in October. I just love the weather in Kansas City in October. It's just glorious to be alive in October. I love that month. And when my calendar is absolutely full, then it's like, well, then it turns gray and gloomy in November. It's like I miss the whole thing. And so every year I'm in the middle of October going, why do I do this to myself every October? Why do I do it? Every October I tell myself I'm not going to fill up my October. And I do. There's a lot of conferences and things in October. It seems
Yes.
like, I don't know why. Or we launch in October. So then it's, meeting after meeting after meeting. And so I told Jenna, my project manager, yesterday, I said, you know what? We're going to say no. I'm going to tell you why, because it's in October.
Yep. And one of the things I love about you, I love so much about you. So I could go on and on about you for just as long. And one of my most favorite things about you is sometimes you meet your heroes. And I know a lot of people look up to you. You have a lot of fans and people who absolutely adore you. And for anyone who's listening that is a big Jennifer Allwood fan, well, you're in good company, first of all. And second of all, when you meet your heroes, sometimes people say don't because you could be disappointed. And I'll say you will be even more impressed when you get to know Jennifer behind the scenes of who she is on the surface. And for a lot of people, you meet their surface personalities and then you get to know them. Maybe you run into them at a dinner or out and they're totally different. And you think, oh, gosh, that's interesting. And for you, it has never been about anything but who you say you are. So when we're behind the scenes and we talk about strategy and we talk about the importance of your family, or if I have a finance meeting with you and your husband
On a Sunday?
On a Sunday, because I was when COVID hit, I was a little bit like, can we pull out the P&Ls and just kind of talk about them?
Yep.
Yes.
And I was like,
make sure you're good with everything that's happening. And
I appreciated it. It was a good check-in. It was really
yes. And I was kind of like, okay, let's pretend that attrition's going to be this,
yes.
and I just want to make sure that you're good with this, and and just doing a quick check-in, simply because I've had my own just tidal waves in my own business in terms of economic downturns and things that I've experienced when I had bigger companies. And I know if you're blindsided by it, it is a really traumatic thing to go through. And I just didn't want you to experience that.
Yeah.
So I knew you were good, but I also wanted you to be in a good place and aware of what the different options were in terms of navigating the changes that the world was about to experience. But even when I'm with the three of you, you are exactly who you are when no one's looking, than when people are watching. And I think for anybody who follows you and really just follows your advice and aspires and is inspired by you, I think it's comforting for them to know that you're the same person behind the scenes. And that's really fun.
I appreciate that more than you know. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And that's, it's been a total joy. So let's talk about your book, because I think that's going to be really inspirational for so many people who are listening. I know many people who listen to this particular podcast are already in the throes of scaling a business. Maybe they're at 7 figures already. Maybe they're past it. A lot of CEOs and leaders listen to this podcast. And so when for you, What
Mhm.
was the time that fear came in for you as you were growing your business?
So fear comes in at every level for me.
Mhm.
And I mean, even the work that we're doing, saying no. I mean, I sound like a badass saying, "Oh no, I said no yesterday because it was in October," but there was that part of me is like, they'll never ask again. That's money we're missing out on. And oh, we
Mhm.
could, since it's on the beach, we could have made it into a trip. And there's that fear over, I hope I'm not making the wrong decision. So, um, I'm someone that struggles with fear quite a bit. And I think you know that probably
Yeah.
after we have, worked together long enough. But the book is called Fear is Not the Boss of You. And it's not a business book, although it will help women in business. We've actually had a ton of people, Laura, order the book for their team, which is really, really cool.
Great.
And it's funny because if you order over 10 books, this is like book nerdy stuff, but it comes from a different company called Porchlight. And because then you
Yes.
can get like a different price. We were number 5 in the month of April for all Porchlight books. Number
So
5. Isn't that cool?
good. It
Because
is so
people were
cool.
ordering them for like their Bible study or book club or for their team for entrepreneurs. So anyway, I wrote Fear is Not the Boss of You because I think I've struggled with fear literally just all of my life. Not like, debilitating, like stuck in bed, not that kind of fear, but just anxiety and anxiousness and people pleasing and not doing something that I really want to do because I'm scared it's going to be a failure or I'm scared it's going to be a success. And I still go through that all the time. So the book is more about not like punching fear in the face. Cause what even is that? Like, and I had somebody the other day is like, I love that you just punch fear in the face. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that even mean? And so the book is really just, the subtitle is How to Get Out of Your Head and Live the Life You Were Made For. And so for me, it's always doing things in spite of my fear. It's always going straight through. It's
Mhm.
always going straight through and not trying to step around it. It's having the hard conversations. It's making the difficult choices. It's saying no when I'm worried about, the repercussions. And so the book is really just about how you can be scared, but you can still do the things that you're wanting to do, that you know that you're called to do, or you feel like God is asking you to do, regardless of your feelings, because fear is definitely a feeling.
It is. It is a feeling. And how do you correlate fear with courage? I know that's a big.
So I have a whole chapter in Fear is Not the Boss of You. Another little nerdy book fact. So originally the title was called Confidence is a Crock of Crap. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I'm not shocked.
I know.
I'm just not like, I'm not like, I didn't even flinch.
And so I think, and I get those words from my dad, who always used to call stuff a crock of crap. And so my publisher was like, okay, we love you, but we probably need to simmer that back just a little. So now it's some lame-o title of that chapter, but it's basically about the difference between confidence and courage. And that we live in a world where confidence sells. People are coming out with courses on confidence. There's books on confidence.
Yes.
There's, get into this 5-day confidence challenge. Like confidence sells because so many women are desperate for it. And so the whole chapter is really dedicated to the idea of, like screw confidence. Like what you need is courage. What you need to be asking God for is courage. What you need to be displaying in front of your children is courage. What you need to go to the next level in your business is courage. What you need to have those hard conversations, to do the things in life you're wanting to do, is courage to do it. Confidence may or may not come on the other side of it, but a courageous woman is unstoppable. I believe that with every single thing in me. And I also believe, and I think a lot of your audience is females and probably some moms, I believe that as mothers, we have this incredible opportunity to teach our children what living courageously means. Because, with 4 kids, like I outsource driving lessons. I have somebody else teaching them baseball, how to, pitch baseball. We have somebody teaching golf lessons to the kids, Spanish at school. But like, who teaches our kids how to be courageous, even when they're scared, even when fear is like, they're gripped with fear? Who teaches our kids that? And if they're not learning that at home, they're not learning it. Because they're not going to learn it from MTV. They're not going to learn it from playing Minecraft. They're not going to learn it from the YouTubes and the TikToks and all the other things. And so I have a whole chapter that just talks about, forget about confidence. Like hopefully you'll get confidence someday as the result of doing things that you're scared to do. You have the fear, you notice the fear, you look at the fear, and you do it anyway. And hopefully confidence will come. But then again, maybe not. But the important thing is you did it. That's the important thing.
Yes. And I love what you're saying about confidence, because confidence is also so reliant.
We've got a lawnmower because that's timely. There we go. Sorry about that.
No worries.
This is working from home. 2020.
Hashtag quarantine life.
Like, don't they know we're recording?
Totally cool. So, what I love what you're saying about confidence too, is that it's so dependent on the human condition. And
Totally.
as Christians, we know that we were made imperfectly. So when we
Mhm.
rely on ourselves and we try to muster up all this confidence and we have all this pressure to feel confident, when it's just courage, there isn't as much pressure around that. I feel like you don't have to show up perfect and be perfect because you were made by somebody who is perfect,
Yeah.
and you're perfect in his eyes. And that's when you can stop worrying about making sure that everything is done the way that you think it should be done, and more about, I'm going to step into what's possible,
100%.
because I know that I have been created in the light of God. So it's
Absolutely.
pretty
I love
awesome.
that. Yeah. So I talk about courage a lot. It's important to me. I have a whole like chapter where I talk about how God tricked me into doing a triathlon for my 40th birthday. You know, a lot of people go to Vegas. No, I'm going to do a triathlon. And not only did he trick me into doing a triathlon, but I couldn't swim. And then ABC, like the one with Matt Lauer, like the old ABC with Matt Lauer, like because Matt Lauer's not there anymore. But anyway, they contacted me. I'll never forget it. I was sitting at the movies with my kids and wanted to do a segment on me training for a triathlon for my 40th birthday, and I thought it was like a scam. I didn't believe them at first, and they literally set out a filming crew, and so I was literally in spandex. Training for a triathlon on ABC's Today Show. So anyway, so I did a triathlon for my 40th birthday. It took me a year to learn how to swim. And I'm not a confident swimmer at all. And I had a panic attack in the water on my first triathlon, and then signed up for another one, had a panic attack there. I've done 10 triathlons to date, and I've had a panic attack in the water every single one, Laura. And so, like, I'm not a confident swimmer. I'm not. And so many people think that eventually, I'm going to feel so confident. Well, maybe not, but I don't let that stop me. I'm
Love
confident I'm not going to die, usually because usually because there's lifeguards, but I'm still not a confident swimmer. But if we're waiting until we feel a certain way, if we're waiting until we feel confident, or if we're waiting until we don't feel fear any longer, we could be waiting forever. I mean, I could be 800 million years old before I do anything. So
So good. And the book is so fun and it's so
thanks.
funny. And as we
Thank
were
you.
just laughing, I thought to myself how fortunate we are that we get to laugh and we get to have fun in business.
Yeah.
And
Amen, girl. Life
yeah,
is too
right?
short. And it's so that work with you is interesting. And that what you just said is interesting because the reason so many of us started our own businesses is because we didn't want to do
Yes.
the traditional thing of sitting in an office where somebody was checking their clock saying, it's 9:05, you're 5 minutes late. Then you trying to explain why you just went through rush hour. Like I can remember having those jobs. And part of what's supposed to be so amazing about being an entrepreneur is that we get to set our own rules. And
Yes.
it's interesting how I'd gotten to this place in my business where, for many, many years I had set my own rules, and then all of a sudden business exploded, and, income was coming in at a much higher rate than what I was used to. And so then I started making all these shifts and doing everything that I thought I was supposed to be doing in business. And, when you're at this level, you're supposed to have 6 meetings back to back, and the fun's supposed to be sucked right out of it. And you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I love that you said that, because business is still supposed to be fun. And I love that I have the opportunity right now to really examine things from, is this something I actually really want to do, or just that I feel like I should do? Because it's really great having the option of saying no to good things, but just that
Yes.
don't line up with where I'm wanting to go, or, it feeling pressureless and it feeling fun for me.
I think for everybody's lives, this idea that you would somehow suffer to get to a place where you no longer suffer, like, makes no sense,
Yeah.
right? I think it's sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get caught up in all of these things that we should do, is like you were saying, and then we struggle along the way to get to some kind of destination that gives us what?
Yeah.
Gives us more of what we created.
Yeah.
And I know, I really do believe, Jennifer, your best work is yet to come. And I think it's because you're going to have space and peace and freedom and joy to really settle into this next season of growing your business. And I think it's the best way to scale. I really do.
Thank
And
you for that.
it's part of what I'm so excited for you for it. And we laugh a lot on Boxer.
We do.
We do. We laugh a
You
lot.
have to remind me often of what I've said that it is that I want and why we're doing the things that we're doing.
Yeah. Or we're going over the funnel and I'm talking about my epidural when I have this next baby, and realize that my son's whole entire first grade class is listening. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. These are the days.
They are, and we can laugh and we can
Yeah.
have fun, and we don't have to be in this confined space as we grow and we scale. And it's something that I'm such a big advocate of, and something I'm just so glad that you're here and talking about. So thank you, Jennifer, for joining, and thank you for
Thanks,
just
Laura.
sharing and being honest and vulnerable. And
Appreciate you.
I know it's going to inspire so many people. So
Thanks.
thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Thanks.